Oh, and here we are. Hello, everyone. My name is Annissa George. Thanks for tuning in. This discussion is part of my Community Impact Series, where I join Boston residents to bring awareness about their work. I believe that the best way to find solutions about our most pressing issues is by making sure that everyone has a seat at the table. And at least for today, it's a virtual table. Today's discussion will focus on advancing child literacy. I'm a firm believer that equity in our education begins with making sure all of our children can read. Instead, persistent declines in fourth grade MCAS reading scores speak to the growing literacy crisis within BPS. I think it's so important, those of you watching and listening at home, the years I've spent in the classroom, in the high school classroom, and certainly through the experiences with my own children, that reading and literacy is so incredibly important to student success and achievement. And I'm so glad today to be joined by parents, advocates, and a local librarian, Felicia, who will be joining us a little bit late for this discussion. Throughout our conversation, we'll take questions in the comments section and do our best to answer as many as possible. I am grateful to be joined by a couple of moms this morning, and we'll look forward to hearing from Felicia as well. But I'd love you to introduce yourself, maybe mention what grade your children are in, and talk to us about why you think literacy is so important. I'm going to start with you, Michelle Donovan.
Michelle Donovan, hi. I am a BPS mom of 4 girls. My oldest, Tatum, is in 6th grade at the Elliott. My second daughter, Isla, is in 4th grade. My third daughter, Karis, is in 1st, and my baby, Quinn, is in K2. My 2 middle girls are both dyslexic. I just actually had Karis, my third daughter, diagnosed this past December. She was doing the whole sort of virtual school thing. She's a little bit old for her grade. She's a September baby. And I just didn't think that the reading was clicking like I thought it should. So I had her tested through school and then took her to see a doctor separately from that. And her testing revealed that she too was also dyslexic. My second daughter had been diagnosed in 2nd grade. So now I'm sort of onto it. So I had Karis diagnosed in 1st. So this is a subject that I'm very passionate about, obviously, as a BPS mom and as the mom of 2 students who struggle with reading.
Yeah, no, it's so important to have advocates in this space. And I know Marcella, for me, has been a tremendous advocate and leader in the space and the discussion around dyslexia services and how we really need to improve what we're doing in the Boston Public Schools and how intimately entwined that is with literacy and literacy conversations. Marcella, introduce yourself if you don't mind and share a little bit about your interest.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Marcella Sliney. I'm a mom of a 16-year-old high schooler. We started out going the route with BPS and trying to get services through them, and I quickly found out that it just wasn't going to. They couldn't help us. This was 10 years ago, so things have changed for the better. And I think now it's so widely spoken, like people are talking about it. And I just want to commend you immensely for bringing this to the center. We can't thrive in the city unless we address literacy. It's the elephant in the room. It's not an easy discussion whatsoever, but you're talking about it. Like it's there. You actually put it on your policy page. We need structured literacy K through 3rd grade. I mean, that's more than I've ever heard anyone say. And I'm not a person to blame anyone. Literacy is not a Boston problem. It's an American problem. Our jails, prisons are filled with half the people who are illiterate. And it's up to us now with COVID, especially with COVID. People refer to them kids right now as the COVID generation. And I'm like, this is so sad. Like we can't lose these kids. And the school to prison pipeline can stop with us. So with the right tools and the right person in office, we can do this. There's no doubt in my mind. We can't write off BPS. No way. We owe it to the children, right? And I believe it. Literacy is the answer. Like you said, equity in education begins with learning to read.
Yep. No, I appreciate that, Marcel. And it's even as a classroom teacher myself, teaching at the high school level. For me, by the time students got to me in 11th and 12th grade, they either were there was a lot of social promotion, or students had already withdrawn from school, either literally or figuratively. So what's happening, and it's more apparent to me more than ever, especially thinking about all that I've learned these last 5.5 years as a city councilor, and sort of the inside peek I've had, and access to experts and access to those with very lived experience, how critically important and central to so much of our work, even outside of sort of the education space, literacy in those early years, how important that is for all of these other things. Michelle Bailey, will you just share maybe a little bit about you and your experience, especially with literacy in particular?
Okay. Michael, my son Michael, was diagnosed dyslexic officially in 3rd grade, but it was brought to my attention in 1st grade. But in essence, he lost 2 years because of testing and trying to schedule appointments, whether it was through BPS or through private, the neuropsych line, trying to go that way about it. He's not severely dyslexic, but he was dyslexic enough to disrupt his learning. He was not learning in the pace he should have. And we've had a really hard time with it. I mean, he didn't qualify for Carroll. He wasn't severe enough to go to Carroll. The school that he was attending at the time, South Boston Catholic, the principal there kept telling me every year, well, I'm looking into hiring a special ed teacher, and Michael is my model for this teacher that I'm going to hire. She never hired anybody. She kept telling me she was going to hire somebody and blah blah blah, and nobody came. So my husband and I just decided, well, we're going to have to do this ourselves. So we hired a private tutor to come a few times a week to the house and work with Michael one-on-one. And that went on for a good 2 years, if not more. And then once he finally finished his Orton Gillingham program with him, and he graduated through that, and his reading and spelling had increased immensely. I mean, it was amazing how well he did. And so we just kept the tutor going for a while, because he was not just a special ed teacher and not just Orton Gillingham teacher, but he was a full-time teacher at a school. So so we kept him on to work with Michael throughout the years. And now this whole thing with COVID, we stopped him coming from the house, and I see the difference in Michael, with him not having the same, I don't know if it was like just the attention and the one-on-one. But this Zoom learning has not been the best fit for Michael. I know that.
Right. Well, we certainly see and hear across the conversations I've had, especially around early education, those early years of our formal education, how important it is to make sure that students have, and young people and our children have, access to appropriate services and early screening. And, whether to identify a learning disability, or to just simply identify where kids are and, where they should be. And without proper screening and without proper literacy instruction, we're unable to identify those things with our students. And timeline seems to be really critical in these conversations, because the more prolonged the process is, especially in identifying a student who may have some special needs and require some additional support, the longer we wait, the further behind they get, and the more frustrated both child and parent becomes. And for our kids who don't have access to those additional supports and additional resources, it really sets them back, I think, for their lifetime. And I think if we were to study there was probably, to Marcella's point, a direct correlation when we think about the school to prison pipeline, when students don't receive the services they need to be successful, that they end up in places that we don't want them. We want students to find achievement and success.
And you know, Annissa, that's so true. I think, a child isn't born a reader. They're taught to read. And if they're struggling in kindergarten, the average age, I think they were saying, was 4th to 5th grade. A child's like diagnosed with an issue. By 5th grade, we've lost them. Like, that's really late. If a kid can't read by 5th grade, then
they're just going to zone out.
They totally are, through no fault of their own, right? It really isn't. So, I mean, and it's really getting the right people. Where you have the opportunity now is getting the right people in place.
And that's 4th grade. You're talking about mentioning 5th grade. That's where we lose so many of our kids. And we say, there's a lot of debate whether, when kids fall off track, but we've pushed them off and we're not giving them the services they need.
Right.
It's our derailment. It's not theirs. And, we often blame it on the child, and it's the adults in the room who are making decisions.
Or the parents. I've heard people say, well, are they reading to their children? It's like, well, yeah, but my parents never read to me. I mean, I'm that generation. We're working, though. Think about it. I don't remember sitting. I'm not putting it down. They're awesome people, but I'm like, I don't remember. My mom was like, get outside and play.
I don't remember that.
I mean, that's what we did. I'm not gonna tell you what age that was, but it's not the parents. It's you can't blame parents. We can't.
No.
Right.
If I could just back up a little bit on that, I do think it needs to be a better partnership.
Definitely. Yes.
Parent, community, school, child, any providers that might be involved, that it really does need to be a partnership. And, it's an important, we actually sort of, aside from some of this literacy conversation, although it's very much directed, we've been having lots of conversations around some of my work on the council, my stuff that's in works around my mayor's run, but how critical that 0 to 5 as an age group is, and all of that pre-kindergarten time, and how are we supporting children, how are we supporting families, and what role does the community, whether it's school-based provider or community-based provider, or a pediatrician, healthcare provider, what role do they play in helping develop that whole child? Right. Those years are so critical.
Right.
It's hard to play catch up, and 5 years is a long time to catch up a child so that they can be on par with their peers.
And especially with COVID now, like this is a whole other issue. We're going to be dealing with children who haven't been in the classroom setting.
Yeah. Now, Michelle Donovan, you've got children along a pretty lengthy age spectrum. What are, how are your kids at their different age levels accessing school, accessing, literacy programs, including your daughters with dyslexia, experiencing dyslexia, and how does COVID intersect with all of it?
It's been quite a year. My oldest was doing great. She didn't miss a beat. She's a strong reader. She reads at like a high school level. So her being such a strong reader is what sort of hinted me at my second daughter maybe having some sort of a learning issue back when I first thought that she might. So she's done virtual school fine, has like had her moments recently where she's done with it. She's back hybrid now, and she'll start full time hopefully on April 26th. Right. My second daughter, Isla, who is dyslexic, she's gotten all of her services without missing a beat through her school virtually. I can't speak to every kid who goes to a BPS school, but at her school, she has gotten all of her services as outlined in her IEP. And my third daughter, like I said, started this year, a little bit behind, but not much. But I was sort of on top of school about it. So to your point, Marcella, we can't blame parents, but I do think that parents have to kind of trust their gut and be an advocate for their own children as well. It's truly a gut feeling. I thought she could be lagging just because she's in school, in virtual school, but she's a super bright kid, and I just thought that something was off. So I sort of pushed for it. Her teachers weren't even convinced of it, but they did the testing, and it was almost identical to my second daughter's testing. And she had already been sort of being pulled like into smaller groups virtually, and now she still is. Her groups are like a little bit larger than they should be, but I'm being patient and given some grace to her school as they're trying to navigate students back in the classroom and hybrid and then full-time. So at some point she'll be in a smaller, group with 5 to 6 kids instead of her larger group now that I think has about 8 kids in it. But she's been getting those small group lessons, 4 or 5 times a week from a reading specialist at her school. And then separately, and this really has nothing to do with city services, but separately, I have both of those girls are in a program at Mass General that is free. It's basically they're health professionals who are learning to become reading specialists. So they're, I think, getting their like master's degrees, and they give free tutoring to students under the supervision of certified specialists. And if you get your child on their wait list, at some point you get called up, and they each receive 2 sessions a week of that tutoring, like after school time.
That's it. Michelle, will you share that with us?
I'll share that with you. It's unbelievable.
Is that the LEAP program, Michelle?
Yep,
No.
I absolutely will. Isla was on their wait list for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as soon as she was diagnosed, I contacted them. And then Karis, as soon as I started having that feeling, I threw her on it. And I don't know if she got pulled in quicker because of some sort of like a sibling preference, but she's already getting that. So between both of them, at school, it's 4 to 5 times a week for 30 minutes or so with a reading specialist. And then it's after school twice a week for 50 minutes each session. So that's something that, school wasn't going to hook me up with that. That's something that I found.
Right. Is the MGH program virtual too right now?
It's virtual now. Yep. Which actually makes it kind of convenient, because if I had to bring them over, I think that this group is in Charlestown.
Yeah.
So
Michelle, but are they doing this in Orton Gillingham, or is this Wilson? Do you know what you're getting?
It's Orton Gillingham, I think.
Okay.
I think it is
Orton
Orton Gillingham.
on that because some of the reading specialists sort of sell that as being similar. Like Wilson is one offshoot of Orton Gillingham.
Right. I mean, Orton Gillingham is based to it's a program it's a one-on-one individual program. Wilson, you can.
Right. So then Wilson, right? Because Mass General, it's one-on-one. It's actually one-on. So Karis right now has 2 tutors. So it's 2 tutors and then 1 supervisor who sort of pops in. And they're, they're like young and fun, and she plays games with them.
Great.
She's fully engaged in it. And that's after a full day of school, which might be virtual school.
Right. So what's apparent to me is that the 3 of you have been able to very much advocate for your children, even though it wasn't easy. It took some years, in fact, to get your children the services they need and require and have to have access to in order to be successful in school. And it comes back to this, I'm just looking at my notes, that when we think about children, especially in those early years, so looking back like 0 to 3 even, that as much as we want to support the child, we really need to teach parents how to become advocates for their children.
100. Right.
I'm sure that the 3 of you had maybe access some advocates for support, maybe early on.
We all talk to each other. Believe it, it's only in the last few years. This is front and center only for moms talking to each other and meeting for coffee. No one has spoken about dyslexia. Like, it just hasn't happened. But now the guidelines were just released yesterday. The districts are going to have to address it. Like, we're going to have programs in place, and more people as you get into the inner city. If you go into some of those schools, I'm telling you, these parents don't even know what it is. So what I was saying about parents, it's not their fault. That's what I mean. It's not a parent's fault if they don't know what dyslexia is.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. No,
so that's what I meant with that.
No,
you know what I mean? Like that.
I mean, Literally,
Like MGH has a 12 to get your. So you have to understand, if you think your child has a problem, you say, so where do I go to get them tested? If you call MGH, they tell you there's a 12-month waiting list. Now you can do that, or you can go to Nesca in Watertown and spend $5,000. You will have an evaluation in 2 weeks, or you can try to search around and get another doctor to get that diagnosis. So it's very difficult to get the initial diagnosis.
it is.
That's what we need to do.
Right.
We got to help people with it. We got to help families with this.
How long does it generally take to get that early diagnosis?
Well, if you pay for it, you can get it quickly. But if you go to
Yeah.
I guess the regular way, not paying for it.
Close to a year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a year.
I would say close to a year. I mean,
And that's a year of academic support that a child's missing out on.
nothing.
Because when you go to BPS, you have to go through the system. You go through a whole process.
Right.
You file an application. They have within 30 days
Right.
to meet with you. And then if
And
you
I
get
know some of what we've talked about offline and in some other settings is if we're getting kids the literacy supports and services they need from the very beginning, that as issues are more, I think, easily identified, and kids are already preemptively getting certain services through well-taught literacy programs.
Yeah.
exactly.
Great.
It makes more sense.
Yep. Yeah.
So I also think that stuff can just vary from school to school, which isn't fair. You know what I mean? Like so my kids have the privilege of going to a really supportive school that didn't fight me on my instincts. You know, both my second and third daughters were like already getting pulled like into small groups. So they weren't fighting me on their testing and saying, oh no, but we don't see it. It was already kind of there. And then so I took the school testing, and for my second daughter, it just happened to be like great timing. I had her first appointment ever with her neuropsych like 2 weeks after that. And I had all of the BPS testing with me. So I never had to pay extra for her sort of private testing, because her testing, it just was so clear. It's like one is like a psych test, and then one is the academic test. And she scored super high on just general, like, her intelligence. But then her decoding scores were just so much lower than they should have been. But not everybody has such a crystal clear test. So most kids have them meeting somewhere here. And then that's when you run into schools fighting you on those services. And no one should be fighting you. I mean, if someone's struggling to read, even if they don't have a diagnosis, they should be getting services. And that's across the board.
Yep.
Not just at special sort of schools. It should be everywhere.
Right. And I do, Felicia Humphreys, who's a Boston Public Schools librarian, is joining us in the next few minutes. And, I think we're going to see there's a direct correlation between just access to the curriculum, to the materials, to the supports, and how there's a direct relationship to that. And the role, I think we have to look at the role that reading specialists play in supporting literacy education across all grade levels, but in particular, we really do need to focus in those early years on literacy and build that very strong foundation. Because without literacy, there is no mathematics, there is no history, there is no. It is that foundation.
I want to just say one thing. 2 years ago, my son got his first part-time job, and it was working in the local hamburger joint. And I'll make this quick. And he was so overwhelmed when he began. I'm like, oh, you overworked? He's like, no, Mom. He's like, it's so much for me to take in. They're shouting, oh, what does that mean? I have to count money. And I'm thinking, this kid has got the best, that money, like, honest to God, he had the best education. And I think, what happens to those other kids that can't do that? They don't even work at McDonald's that they can't count change. So that's why we have to get it right.
Right. No, absolutely.
It's so hard.
For Felicia to come in, we're going to talk specifically about school libraries. Do you have libraries in the schools that your children attend?
Yep.
Yes.
You have one. Michelle, libraries, school libraries in the schools your children attend?
We don't. I think like each classroom has their own library, but there isn't a set library.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is interesting because we do have like a lot of great things, but no.
Well, with that, I see Felicia's about to join us. She should be popping onto the screen any moment. And the dog is getting to something, but he'll be okay over there. Where is Felicia?
I see her. Hi, Felicia.
Hello, Felicia.
You see her before me? I don't see her yet.
I can hear everyone and I can see everyone.
Is she coming in, Malika? I don't see her.
She's right there. She's right to the bottom next to Marcel. I don't know how everyone disappeared.
Well, Felicia, I can't see you, but if you can hear me, welcome. I'm so grateful that you were able to join us.
Thank you. You look great,
You
by the way.
can't hear me then.
I can hear you. Uh-oh, let me try something else. Maybe
Marcel, you can see her. So will you ask her about the about her work, how she feels that her work is directly in, the work of the school librarian in library services, how that relates to childhood literacy?
Do you want me to say something? Who, me?
Yes, she does.
Oh, you want me to?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. It's so you're like the first person our children see. Even in the local library, when we have a 3-year-old, it's the first place we go to is the library.
Absolutely.
And I often think like if we could literally have like information for parents, like when they go in the library, is your kid struggling to read? Like just that one line, is your child struggling to read?
I'm taking notes. Okay.
Right. That's a big. That would be wonderful because it starts right in the library. It really does because
it does.
We do, like when our kids are 2 and 3 and it's winter. You meet other moms, and that's where I first saw the signs was the library. That was there. So you play a very important role in our children's lives. And
thank you very much for that.
Yes, definitely.
I will say first off.
So I can't see or hear Felicia.
Oh,
but you all can.
Oh.
I don't see
Marcella, I don't know if she can hear me.
I can hear you.
But Felicia, can you hear me?
I can hear you. It says here that you're in the show.
Oh, so you know what, Felicia? I'll read it. Felicia, you work as a local school librarian. I am a strong believer that access to libraries is directly related to childhood literacy. How does literacy impact your work as a school librarian?
Well,
thank you, Annissa.
Literacy is foremost. That's like the number one thing that we actually focus on. Now, in my capacity, I'm a high school librarian. So as I was speaking with Melissa and kind of prepping for the day, I was sharing with her that starting with birth up to school age, and from that point up to about 3rd, 4th grade is where we seem to lose our students, more specifically our young boys, when it comes to reading. Mm-hmm. And then moving on, 4th, 5th, middle school, and then by high school, if they have not grasped the concept of sounds, letters, how to make that connection, and then understanding, making the connection between what's read, what's written, and then how do we apply that to the real world and everyday life. And in their case, as students, you're just school, your homework, interact with teachers, how to make plans, etc. And be a little bit that. And in their case, as students, you're just I hear myself talking.
I hear you.
Okay. So literacy, once we get to the high school level, it's very important for that elementary and middle to really hone in on those factors that are very important with parents being involved, first and foremost, and understanding that from birth to 3 to 4 years old, that the child is actually developing from babbling to your oohs and ahs and their formal letters, from your D's, your B's, your G's, your T's, all those sounds. I'm a former speech therapist, and working with our students, we do find those at a very early age that if there is going to be a problem with reading, it's caught very, very early. So those are some things that as parents, you can just kind of look at. And I know that precious baby being born, you don't want to see any defects and things like that. But those are things that, you may want to look at and see if the child needs some type of help with formulating sounds or articulation, and then moving over into language, understanding what those words mean and how to recognize their sounds as well. So once they get to that high school level, we build upon those blocks and we go into more of the understanding. There's the history component that they're looking into, and of course ELA. And then our point at this time is prepping them for college, how to write those essays, how to get ready for college.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the conversation that we've been having thus far is about, the lack of access to literacy programs. And as a high school teacher, you probably have seen the consequences of that. And then some of the conversation that we've been having. So we'd love for you to share what those consequences are and how that really impacts the students in the long term.
So for the state of Massachusetts, all students must complete the MCAS, which is a state exam. And it really is a telling point where if students cannot read long passages, along with the technology that goes along with that, and be able to manipulate those passages, breaking down the subject, the verb, and a lot of it is the comprehension. How are they applying what they have read, and then to answer those 4 or 5 bullets of questions that they have assigned to that one extremely long passage. And we found that many students, if you don't recognize the language, you don't recognize the words, and then how to break down those words into segments, even if you don't understand what it means, breaking the word down and then reading through the paragraph gives you an idea of what or where you're going and what it means to answer some of those questions. So for the long run, it's the MCAS scores, especially in the reading department in that area, and that helps with your college entrance. So again, that does start in the elementary and the middle school, and then moving forward. Because in many cases, once they're in high school, yes, in my case, I do have, as a high school librarian, I do have middle school material for some students, and then there are some elementary school. So I carry all material for my students because you do have your SEI group, your SEL group, and then those students that are developmentally delayed. So they have all genres for them as well. Another area that I wanted to pinpoint was allowing students to read graphic novels and then picture books and have them to actually create stories. I see a question from Michelle. My 2 dyslexic daughters get free tutoring through MGH. Oh, nope.
No, I'm sorry. That was more of just a follow-up to something that we had just talked about previously. I finally figured out how to get the link.
Okay.
I'm into this. I'm like, where's the chat? So I'm sorry. That's not related to what you just discussed.
Okay, but I'm trying to get a spot with program.
No, thank you, everybody. I'm not quite sure if you can still hear me or see me.
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
I was watching some of Felicia. Thank you. Some of Felicia and her points on through the Facebook Live on my phone. I'm just so grateful for everyone who had took some time to join us today. I think it's really fabulous to see and hear about your experiences, Michelle, and Marcella, and sort of the slightly different approaches, but still in the end, with your child at the center of mind for all of the work that you do and how that informs the help and the missing services that our students in BPS have. And Felicia, for your continued work, really deep in the weeds in this space is really fantastic. And obviously you are a skilled practitioner in a number of different ways. And I'm grateful to have had you here today, sharing some of your experiences with us and your thoughts about this work. There is so much more to do. And before we create any more messes of technology, at least on my end, I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you to everybody for joining us for this brief conversation, but one that should continue for sure. Michelle, Marcella, Alicia, thank you so much. And Malika for joining us today. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.